Hello. This week in Chicago, we're having something called the Midwest Noahide Ger Conference. People from around the Midwest of the United States, as well as other places in the United States, are coming together to study the Torah laws as they apply to non-Jews and how it's possible for a non-Jew to become part of the Torah system. You might ask, what is a ger? And I've asked that question myself a lot of times. I'm told that a ger is a person that doesn't feel that they belong in the system that they're in. They feel like a stranger within their communities or within the whole. You know, they use the term the movie The Matrix to try to explain it. It's like Neo in the beginning of the movie doesn't really feel like he belongs in the life that he has. That he feels a connection to something else, and that there's something else out there that he needs to connect to, and things just aren't right. I've never really been too sure about this definition because it can basically apply to anybody, or as Snarty Barfust explains, everybody in the universe feels that way. So I'm not really sure how that's used as a definition. Another definition that's used to explain what a ger is that he goes beyond. He has the 7 Noahide mitzvahs, and he goes beyond the 7 Noahide mitzvahs. He connects. The idea is to connect to something that's beyond this world. One of the main exclamations for this is in the Laws of Kings, in the Rambam, Laws of Kings 10:10, where he says, we should not prevent a B'nai Noach who desires to perform one of the Torah mitzvah in order to receive a reward for doing so. He performs it as required. If he brings a sacrifice, an animal to be sacrificed as a burnt offering, we should receive it. So the idea is that one of the qualities of the ger is that he brings other things. He could participate in other mitzvahs, and that's you know, they use a terminology 7 + 1 = ger. The question then is, what are these other mitzvahs he's able to take? And you know, there's different ideas about that. One idea would be you take on a more detailed approach to the 7 laws. For example, you can learn the laws of copyright violations and perform the 7 laws better. Copyright is part of the prohibition against theft. So the idea would be to study more and to become better adept at that performance of the 7. Or you could go into an area what we call derek eretz, of being a decent human being, and study the laws of honoring your parents. Although it's not one of the 7, it's considered intellectually obligatory, or that would be the area that the ger crowd refers to as the Torah of Shem. You know, basically everything to do with being a decent person. Maybe it refers to going beyond what a Noahide would normally do, taking on one of the other mitzvahs. One idea might be shooing away the mother bird. This is the mitzvah that a Jew would do if he comes across eggs in the wilderness, a nest with eggs in it or young chicks, and he desires to perform this mitzvah. He shoos away the mother bird, and then he can collect the chicks or the eggs. And here's some full color pictures of rabbis shooing away mother birds and performing this mitzvah. Other ideas get a little bit more complicated. You could take on the laws of separating meat and dairy. You don't eat cheeseburgers anymore if that's what the Noahide wants, or if that's what the Ger wants to do. All I can say to this law is be careful what you wish for. You're going to find yourself buying a lot more kitchen utensils and buying a new stove and ovens and all sorts of things. And then there's laws that apparently everybody agrees, at least everybody I've talked to agrees, even the Ger crowd would agree you're not supposed to do, and that's taking on the mitzvahs associated with Shabbos, the prohibitions of doing various work during Shabbos. And so apparently when it says that we can take on mitzvahs, when the Rambam says we can take on mitzvahs, he's not referring to all of the mitzvahs. There's apparently certain mitzvahs we can take on, certain mitzvahs we should do. We should do anyway, like honoring our parents. We should do it anyway, even though it's not directly commanded in the 7. But then there's other mitzvahs that we should not do. And one of the big questions is how do we determine what the mitzvahs are that we're allowed to do, and how do we determine what the mitzvahs are that we're absolutely forbidden to do, and how do the various of the 613 fit into this? One of the big questions is the issue of mezuzahs. That you might say there's a benefit to a mezuzah, and it can help bring a person to a mindset, reminding a person, if there's a mezuzah on the door, reminding him that he has to always be thinking about Hashem, no matter where he goes. Maybe it can also be the same benefit can be accomplished by having Torah books in your house. And so then if I have Torah books in the house, do I still require a mezuzah? Which for a Jew, of course he requires a mezuzah because it's a command, but it's not a command for a non-Jew. So if I receive the benefit of the mezuzah, that's remembering Hashem by having Torah books in the house, do I still need a mezuzah? That's maybe not. And one of the other arguments is that there's spiritual energy that's brought into the home by having a mezuzah. And there's a tremendous amount of spiritual energy that's just on the other side of the screen. But what we think of as going back to the Matrix idea, just on the other side, there's a tremendous amount of power that we're not accessible to directly in this world, because the screen, otherwise the world wouldn't be able to exist. So we have ways of bringing that energy into the world, such as saying brachas over food, that are done in a controlled manner, and it can be beneficial. So could a mezuzah accomplish that? All I know is when you're dealing with energy, you got to be careful. This week's Torah portion, we have Nadab and Avihu, who accessed the spiritual energy in a way that wound up destroying them. They were expired from it. Their charred remains were taken out of the temple, or taken out of the Mishkan. And so, yeah, we have to be careful when we're dealing with these spiritual energies. Don't do things of that nature unless you have a good relationship with a competent rabbi locally that you know, and he can advise you with those things. Yeah, the other aspect is also with this week's Torah portion. It's named the 8th. That's the 8th day when they started, the Mishkan started functioning. That's associated also with the Ger crowd of the Noahide movement. The idea is that 7 plus 1 equals Ger. The way it's applied there is that you have the 7 laws of Noah. And then if you do another law, you decide to stop eating cheeseburgers, okay, that makes you a Ger. I'm not really sure if that's how it works. The 7 does refer to the 7 laws. The 1 in the Talmud, it refers to the Ger Toshav who takes on the prohibition against idolatry being sufficient to be a Ger. Now, how does taking on the prohibition of the idolatry without taking on the other 6 make a person qualified in any way, this is explained that what that refers to is this taking on the sovereignty of God is a manifestation of the prohibition against idolatry. So the prohibition of idolatry, in that sense, it's like the keter, it's the crown. It's not. It's above the seven. It's beyond. It's connected, but it's beyond. It's similar to how you can have the keter and you can have dos that are actually kind of functioning either one or the other. That's how the idolatry, the prohibition against idolatry can function here. The person accepts the sovereignty of God, and that brings them into the system. But they're also expected, they can't, they also are expected to follow the seven. So it's not like it's one or the other, it's both. Just different aspects of what has to be done. And they're connected to this is also a whole bunch of other rules. It takes on 30 or however you figure it. That's what's referred to as Derek Eretz. The Ger crowd refers to it as the Torah of Shem. Ask Noah would refer to it as intellectually obligatory things to do, things you have to do, like honoring parents, you just have to do it. And so all three of these are important. The sovereignty of God, the seven commandments, and the being a decent human being, being a minch. All these three are what make a person into this state that we're all trying to be. Thank you very much.